Hey, welcome to the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Mack, joined today by my co-host, Landon, and we're going to be talking Week 6 waivers. Week 5 was crazy. We had a couple rookies absolutely pop off, and we're here to break it down for you and help you through another tricky set of waivers. Lando, I'm going to kick this one to you first. Up on the dock, we have, by popular demand, Chase Claypool, rookie wide receiver out of Notre Dame, playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, had a monstrous day, 110 yards and 4 touchdowns. The best thing about this player, he's from Canada. What are you going to do with Mapletron? Are you going out to get him, or are you passing?
I would definitely pick up Chase Claypool. Just like LeBron getting 4 rings, just like Tom Brady not knowing what fourth down is, Claypool had 4 touchdowns, and that just cannot be reached by any wide receiver. However, Mac, I'm going to temper expectations. I'm probably not going to want to start him right away, but he's definitely worth an ad. A guy like that, the upside is insane. So his next 3 games, he plays Cincinnati, Tennessee, and Baltimore. That's the 6th easiest schedule. When we do our projections, Mac, I'm still going to have Juju Smith-Schuster higher than Claypool. I'm going to have Deontay Johnson higher if he's healthy. So I'm still not thrilled to start Claypool. He's still going to be a flyer for me, but he's a rookie that has a ton of upside. So in my FAAB, I'm willing to spend between 20 and 25% of my FAAB on Claypool, which is no joke. You gotta pay up if you want a guy like Claypool. But I'm also temperate. I'm not going to do that if I absolutely need him, I guess. There's other players with safer floors potentially that I would add instead of Chase Claypool. I would put, probably though, if I'm in a 1 quarterback league, I will put my number 2 or 3 priority on Claypool.
It's a good point, and he is a flex consideration, I think, going forward. It all is going to hinge for me on the health of Deontay Johnson, but what we are seeing is maybe they're figuring out how to use Chase Claypool, because coming out of Notre Dame, he was criticized as, not criticized, but he was praised as a very good route runner, very full route tree, looking really good in and out of breaks, and extremely athletic for his size, profiled to be maybe a smaller tight end at 6'4", or a big wide receiver, and that's, hence the name Mapletron, being from Canada and being just a beast. But he was criticized for not being able to locate the football downfield and, stopping his routes because of that. And he's getting work out of the backfield on swing routes and even setting up screens for him. So it'll be interesting to see how they use Claypool moving forward. But before we go any further, for those of you that have not heard of this channel before, you stumble onto us, welcome in. You can get us on Instagram and Twitter at snap_fantasy. You can get Landon and myself at our individual handles down below. And as always, we would love if you would consider subscribing to the channel, or even leaving a like or comment down below who is your favorite pickup for this week. Landon, I think when we talk about longer term value and maybe a more consistent play, we're looking to a guy like Laviska Shenault, Jacksonville rookie wide receiver as well. These rookies have been popping off, but what are you doing with Laviska Shenault rest of season?
I'm willing to put between 15 and 20% of my FAAB on Laviska Shenault. Even with the hamstring injury, he still showed that he was valuable. And DJ Chark's been banged up, so this is going to be an opportunity for Laviska to be involved in all facets of the offense. He gets jet sweeps around. He gets used in all kinds of ways. And Laviska has always been a guy that I've been very impressed with. But again, he's a lot better without DJ Chark on the field. With him on the field, he is 4 receptions for 34 yards, and without 6 receptions for 83. So it makes a big difference on an offense done by Gardner Minshew and led by Gardner Minshew. He is looking for Laviska. Their next schedule has Detroit, the LA Chargers, and then a bye week. So he's a guy, especially if you're in a keeper league, just like Claypool, you'd be willing to put maybe more on him in a keeper league. But Laviska Shenault could be an every week flex play depending on the injury, especially to DJ Chark.
And while we bring up the bye weeks, this week the Patriots were slotted to have a bye. However, because of the canceled game in week 5, their bye week was pushed to week 5, and they will be playing this week. However, the Chargers are now on bye. They've been moved up from week 10 to week 6. So we have the Saints, Raiders, Seahawks, and now Chargers on bye this week. So when we get to the running back category, there's going to be some new teams. If you were a Josh Kelly or Justin Jackson winner last week on the waiver wire, you now have to sit those players down unexpectedly because of NFL changes. When we talk about Laviska Shenault, more longer term, I echo the same sentiments as Landon. In a shorter, like 8 to 10 team league, you need to go out and get yourself T. Higgins and Henry Ruggs. 54% owned for Higgins, 44% owned for Ruggs. Both have really, really solid roles in their offense, and they should be rostered for you and potentially considered flex plays. I do love Henry Ruggs and his big playability. The last name on this list, and this is a guy that I'm actually not going out to try to roster aggressively, that is. If I can pick him up on the cheap, I'm willing to do so, but we're talking Travis Fulgham from the Philadelphia Eagles. Only 3% owned in leagues, Landon. How much are you willing to spend on a guy where this offense hasn't produced fantasy wide receivers this year? This is the first time they've cracked the top 20 with a fantasy wide receiver. The last best finish for them was Greg Ward in week 3, where he was wide receiver 25. First 2 weeks, wide receiver 60 and 46 for Carson Wentz. And the tight ends have struggled for Philly. What are you doing with Fulham? Are you willing to spend up, or do you think this was a flash in the pan?
I'm not willing to spend up for Fulham, even though he had one of the best fantasy games of this list, except for Claypool, of course. Fulham's not a guy I believe in. If you're desperate, if you're super desperate, consider a 10% FAAB bid on him. But really, that's right at my ceiling for Fulham. I'm looking to put 1, 2, maybe 5% on Fulham at best. But he was looked at by Carson Wentz. I still have faith in Zach Ertz, even though he's not getting targets. And I also am expecting Alshon Jeffrey to come back soon. So if that's the case, we know how the target hog that Alshon Jeffrey is when he's healthy. And potentially in a week or two, look for Alshon on your waiver wire if he's owned or not. But this is Travis Fulgham is a guy that we didn't really know much about. So I'm not willing to invest a lot of my FAAB in a guy that is kind of a one-hit wonder. It happens every year, every week. There's a guy that just pops off out of nowhere, and I think this was a one best case scenario kind of week. The stars aligned for Fulham on in this week.
Look, if you're super banged up and you've been waiting on Chris Godwin, or you've now had to deal with Devontae Adams out, or whatever the case may be, a surprise bye week, I think Travis Fulgham is a decent pickup, given that he has the 6th easiest wide receiver schedule in the next 3 weeks. Baltimore, New York Giants, and the Dallas Cowboys Swiss cheese defense. It's a flex consideration, no doubt. Someone in this offense had to step up with Jalen Reagor out with surgery. Someone had to do it, and Fulham's been the guy. I just don't know if I can trust Carson Wentz long term. So there are your wide receivers. We're going to kick it up to the quarterbacks, and if you find yourself in a super flex league, Andy Dalton is a very interesting waiver ad, considering he now finds himself in probably the most well-equipped position he's ever had as a quarterback in this league. Andy Dalton could be quite fantasy relevant for rest of season. He's probably one of the best backups in the league, was a starter for, I believe, 8 seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals, and had one of his best careers in his rookie year with 33 touchdowns. Andy Dalton can get it done. The question is, can he get it done in a Dallas Cowboys uniform? What do you think, Landon?
If I was in a super flex league, and if you're in a big league, like a 12, 16 team league, I would be spending almost all of my FAAB. I'm talking 90% of my FAAB, maybe more on a guy like Andy Dalton. Even if he's 70% of what Dak Prescott was, that is still an elite option. With the weapons he has, it's going to be great. I don't really care about his schedule. He plays Arizona, Washington, Philly. That's the 12th hardest schedule. That's not what I'm too concerned about. You need to downgrade probably all of his weapons a little bit than what you had with Dak Prescott, but Andy Dalton is going to be owned in your league, and in any kind of super flex league, this is definitely my number one. If you lost Dak Prescott in a regular league, I would consider him, but I'm not going to spend that kind of money. I'm talking maybe 10% of my FAAB, 10 to 15% of my FAAB on Dalton. But there's other options. There's always other options at the quarterback position if you're in a one quarterback league. So Andy Dalton's going to be very feasible, but he's more of a good matchup quarterback than in a DFS play than a locked and loaded every week starter like Dak Prescott was.
For sure, and Andy Dalton has that feel like Jameis Winston did last year, where we have a terrible defense mixed with a really good offense. And whether Andy Dalton comes in or it's still Dak Prescott, this wide receiving core of CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and Amari Cooper are going to continue to get work. And Zeke is still one of the best running backs in the league. So I don't see how Andy Dalton isn't somewhat efficient and effective as the Dallas Cowboys starter. Another guy that's just been bananas so far this year is Ryan Fitzpatrick, aka Fitzmagic. He's only 21% owned right now, and he's actually down 14%. For some reason, he's seen a decline in ownership. Maybe people are thinking that it's time for Tua Tagovailoa to get on the field, but I think not. When you look, the Miami Dolphins have a bye week in week 7, and I think we see at least one more week with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm only willing to spend up to 5% on him for another streamable week, but we got the Jets, then a bye, then the Los Angeles Rams, which is the 9th easiest schedule for quarterbacks. Are you willing to stream Fitzmagic in a week where we might not have Drew Brees, or we won't have Drew Brees, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, or Justin Herbert?
Of course, I'm definitely adding Fitzpatrick. Another guy I'm adding, Mac, is going to be Gardner Minshew. He's only 51% owned. I would put between 1% and 4% of FAAB on him. I think you can get him pretty easily. But again, this is a tough bye week. So Gardner Minshew, I think, is a great streaming candidate. He plays Detroit this week. After that,
which is super soft.
Detroit, the Chargers, and then a bye week for Gardner Minshew. Because of these flipped around bye weeks, it's been messed up. Before, he had a bye week in 2 weeks, which is not ideal, but this seems to be better now for him anyways for these flipped around bye weeks. So it's a little bit crazy, but Gardner Minshew is definitely a streamer and his floor is probably around 18 fantasy points for your team.
And just to note, Detroit right now giving up the 12th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, the 5th most to running backs, and 7th most to wide receivers. The only position they can seem to defend right now is the actual tight end position. So the Detroit Lions are going to have their hands full with Gardner Minshew and the Jacksonville Jags. On to the running back position, and this week, no real tight ends to note. Cameron Brate is probably the only one that I personally would be willing to put anybody on, coming off a 6-target week, having O.J. Howard go down for the season with an Achilles injury. But first and foremost, at the running back position, Alexander Mattison, only 40% owned and up 3% on Monday. We have been talking about Mattison for a long time as a guy who is a must-own handcuff, who will be able to get the job done for you, be a fantasy MVP should anything happen to Dalvin Cook, and in Sunday Night Football fashion, steps in for Dalvin Cook, amasses 112 yards on 20 carries and a little bit more through the air. I think Alexander Mattison is a must-have player, and I'm willing to spend, I think, if I'm a Dalvin Cook owner, up to 25%, but I think that you could also pick him up for 10 to 15% and trade him should you be the successful candidate. Are you in on Alexander Mattison, Landon?
I'm definitely willing to use my number one priority on Mattison. The running back position is so valuable, and we're not sure of the severity. He had an MRI, and it looked okay for Dalvin Cook, but a groin injury is a weird one. You got to make sure they're fully healthy before they come back. He might miss 2 to 3 weeks. It won't be too serious. That's why Mack is saying like don't blow the bank on a guy like Mattison, but he's going to be very, very valuable against Atlanta this upcoming week. And yeah, that's why for sure putting 25% on him is no question. And blowing the number one priority on Mattison is worth it if you're in a little bit of a desperate situation, which I mean a lot of people are. Let's be honest.
Now, this guy I want to talk about real quick. Coming off a bye week, people forgot about how good his week 4 performance was, having 105 all-purpose yards on 16 touches. I'm talking Jamal Williams from the Green Bay Packers, the 2-punch to the 1-2 punch combo in Green Bay, with Aaron Jones being, a top 5 running back on the season. They play Tampa Bay this week, who cannot defend against the pass. Jamal Williams has been featured in the passing game for Green Bay. 8 catches in week 4 against the Atlanta Falcons. I think had the Green Bay Packers played in week 5, he would have been widely rostered, but he's only 15% owned, actually up 5% today. I'm willing to spend, a sneaky like 1 to 4%. I don't think that you have to spend up to get Jamal Williams. If you lost like a Josh Kelly or a Justin Jackson this week because of a surprise bye week, Jamal Williams might be a really good flex or a good void filler for 1 week in a matchup. I think Green Bay should be able to score the ball a ton.
Now, the other guy I'm going to mention is going to be J.D. McKissic, the Washington backfield, or the running back, I mean. He is basically unowned in your league, and you could probably get him for like 1 to 3%, 1 to 5% of your FAAB. You could probably get him for free because no one's excited to add J.D. McKissic, let's be honest. But he's going to be one of those running backs that is startable week in and week out. He's used in the passing game. For really an unexplained reason, they did not use Antonio Gibson like pretty much in the second half of that game. After the first quarter, he had no more receptions. So J.D. McKissic was used a lot, and he's got a good schedule coming up. The Giants and Dallas, both of those offenses give up lots to the passing running back, and 16 targets over the last 2 games. That's awesome. And Kyle Allen is a great check down quarterback. So it feels gross, but if you're in a pinch in a desperate spot, you could definitely start McKissic if you need it in a flex position. So maybe he's a free guy at the end of the waiver wire.
So there you go. Week 6 waivers in the books here. If there's anybody else that you want our opinion on, feel free to drop it in the comments below. We are going to make it a point as we continue to grow to get to every single question that comes our way. That's what kind of separates us from the big guys, quote unquote. Again, if you were here for the first time and you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. We appreciate the support. Leave a like, a comment, or consider subscribing if you liked what you heard and saw today. We will be back tomorrow, and feel free to stay tuned to the channel throughout the week for more updates. Have a good one, and we'll see you guys in the next video.